In 2009, paleontologist Gregory Erickson was analyzing the bite marks on a Triceratops skull, deep gouges left by a Tyrannosaurus rex, when he noticed something unexpected. The marks weren't just from feeding. Some of them were clustered in patterns consistent with the rex dragging its teeth slowly across the bone. Not efficiently, not for nutrition. What was it doing? That question opened a door that paleontologists have been walking through ever since, because the more carefully scientists examine the fossil record, the more they find evidence of behaviors that go beyond the purely mechanical. Behaviors that in living animals we associate with something we usually reserve for ourselves. Emotion, not sentimentality, not the projection of human feelings onto ancient bones. Something more precise and more surprising. The neurological and behavioral architecture that produces what we recognize in modern animals as fear, attachment, curiosity, and distress. Did dinosaurs experience any version of these states? And if the answer is even partially yes, what does that mean for how we understand the inner life of a creature that ruled this planet for over 150 million years? That is the investigation ahead of us. To understand whether dinosaurs could have had anything resembling emotions, we first need to understand what emotions actually are, biologically. The modern scientific consensus, shaped significantly by the work of neuroscientist Jacques Panksepp, identifies a set of what he called primary emotional systems, ancient neural circuits present in all mammals and many other vertebrates that generate states like fear, panic, rage, seeking, and care. These are not uniquely human, they are evolutionarily ancient.
This is the key insight. The neural machinery for basic emotional states is old, far older than mammals, far older possibly than the division between the lineage that would produce birds and the one that would produce crocodilians. And dinosaurs sit directly within that evolutionary history. The closest living relatives of non-avian dinosaurs are birds and crocodilians, a grouping called archosaurs. Both groups show behavioral evidence of emotional states. Crocodilians demonstrate fear responses, stress behaviors, and, remarkably, parental attachment. Female Nile crocodiles have been observed carrying their hatchlings gently in their mouths for weeks, responding to distress calls from buried eggs, and defending offspring against predators at significant personal risk.
This is not reflex behavior. Researchers studying crocodilian maternal care, including work published in the journal Copia and later reviewed in comparative cognition literature, have documented that crocodilian mothers distinguish their own offspring from those of other individuals and respond selectively to their calls, a form of individual recognition that requires memory and social discrimination. If crocodilians, often dismissed as primitive, unfeeling reptiles, demonstrate attachment behavior of this kind, the question of whether dinosaurs shared related neural circuitry becomes genuinely worth asking. And the fossil evidence has started providing answers that no one fully expected.
The nesting record of dinosaurs is one of the richest sources of behavioral evidence we have. In the 1970s and 1980s, paleontologist Jack Horner, excavating the Two Medicine Formation in Montana, found something that changed the field. A nesting colony of Maiasaura, a large hadrosaur, with evidence that the adults returned repeatedly to the same nests, and that juveniles showed worn teeth consistent with being fed by parents rather than foraging independently. It was the first direct fossil evidence that a dinosaur not only incubated its eggs, but invested in its young after hatching, a behavior pattern associated in living animals with the neural systems that generate parental attachment. The implications are quiet but significant. An animal that returns to its young, that feeds them, that stays, is an animal experiencing something. Not necessarily what a human mother feels, but something functionally analogous in the circuits that generate care and connection. If this kind of evidence, the forensic reconstruction of emotional life across deep time, is the kind of science that keeps you watching, subscribe now. The investigations ahead go even deeper. There is also the evidence of trauma and how some dinosaurs responded to it. Multiple tyrannosaur specimens show healed injuries, broken ribs, damaged vertebrae, bite wounds from other tyrannosaurs that the animal survived. These injuries required weeks or months of recovery, during which the animal was vulnerable.
Healing of this kind in modern large predators is associated with behavioral changes, reduced activity, avoidance of conflict, altered movement patterns that functional neuroscience associates with pain processing and its emotional correlates.
And then there is the bone pathology evidence. Paleontologist Bruce Rothschild and colleagues, studying healed stress fractures in hadrosaur foot bones, found patterns consistent with repetitive locomotor stress, the kind of injury associated in modern animals with behaviors driven by psychological states. In captive animals, repetitive stress injuries of this type are often produced by what researchers call stereotypic behavior, repetitive movements associated with chronic stress or frustration in confined or threatening environments. We cannot prove a hadrosaur was stressed, but we can observe that it was doing something repeatedly that left the same physical trace that stress-driven repetitive behavior leaves in modern animals. The evidence is indirect, but it is real and it is pointing somewhere. The most direct window into dinosaur emotional architecture may come from brain structure. CT-based endocast studies, including work by Amy Balanoff at Johns Hopkins and her collaborators, examining the evolution of the avian brain, show that the regions associated in modern animals with emotional processing were present and functional in the theropod lineage. The limbic system structures visible in bird brains, which generate fear responses, attachment, and what researchers call motivational states, have deep evolutionary roots traceable through the fossil record of brain architecture. Birds, as living dinosaurs, give us a direct working model, and the emotional lives of birds are no longer scientifically dismissible. Ravens have been shown to exhibit what researchers describe as anticipatory pessimism, a negative emotional bias following stressful experiences.
Parrots show grief-like behavioral changes following the loss of bonded companions. Corvids demonstrate what appears to be empathy, responding differently to the distress of known individuals than to strangers. If these cognitive and emotional capacities trace back through the avian lineage to non-avian theropods, the question is not whether dinosaurs had something resembling emotional states. The question is how rich and how complex those states were. And now, the finding that has generated the most careful discussion in recent years. In 2020, a study published in Nature examining the social behavior of crocodilians documented what the authors described as play behavior. Juvenile crocodilians engaging in non-functional, apparently enjoyable activity with objects and with each other, with no immediate survival purpose. Play in the scientific literature is one of the strongest behavioral indicators of positive emotional states. It requires a nervous system capable of something beyond pure stimulus response. It requires, in the language of affective neuroscience, something that functions like enjoyment. Crocodilians play. The sister group to dinosaurs. The closest living relatives of the animals that walked this planet for 150 million years. This does not prove that dinosaurs played, but it means the neural hardware for play-associated positive states was present in the archosaur lineage, potentially shared by both the crocodilians and the dinosaurs that diverged from their common ancestor over 240 million years ago. I find that genuinely remarkable, not because it means dinosaurs were happy in any human sense, but because it means the universe of their inner experience may have been wider than we ever assumed.
66 million years ago, a Maiasaura returned to its nest at dusk, and its young called out, and it responded. Whether that response was accompanied by anything resembling what we call feeling, warmth, recognition, the pull of attachment, we cannot say with certainty. What we can say is that the neural architecture for such states was ancient, was shared across the vertebrate lineage, and was present in the closest living relatives of every dinosaur that ever existed. The fossil record shows us animals that healed their wounds, fed their young, returned to their colonies,
and in some species may have experienced the world with a richness of inner state we are only now beginning to take seriously. The question of whether dinosaurs had emotions is no longer simply poetic. It is a scientific question with a fossil record, a comparative biology, and an evolutionary framework. And the honest answer, increasingly, is probably something, probably more than we thought. The investigation into the inner lives of ancient creatures continues, because there is one animal, not a dinosaur, but its direct descendant, whose emotional intelligence has been documented with such precision that it has forced a complete revision of how we think about non-human minds, the crow, and what it knows about grief, deception, and memory. That investigation is waiting. I'll see you there.